Hello friends, welcome back. Today we are going to solve the transportation problem uh, which has got a degenerate solution, and we will see how to deal with degeneracy and how to convert the degenerate problem into a basic feasible problem. Okay, so let us start the problem here. Okay, so this is the problem. Anyway, we have solved this problem, the initial solution, by least cost method, and we have got the uh, the allocations 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we have got basically 5 allocations for this problem. But if we want to continue with the optimality test using any method, first we need to check whether it is having a basic feasible solution or not. So how do we find out whether it is a basic feasible solution? So basically the number of allocations here is number of allocations equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Number of allocations are 5, and m plus n minus 1 is equal to m is equal to 3 plus 4 minus 1 is equal to 7 minus 1 is equal to 6. When number of allocations, if number of allocations is less than m plus n minus 1, then I'll make it more visible here. If number of allocations is less than m plus n minus 1, if this happens, this is called as less than m plus n minus 1, then this is known as a degenerate solution. Okay, when we get this degenerate solution, that is number of allocations less than m plus n minus 1, we cannot solve the optimality tests. Okay, when we have this degenerate solution, we need to have a non-degenerate solution or a basic feasible solution. Then only we will be able to do it. So how to convert this degenerate into a non-degenerate or a basic feasible solution? Non-degenerate and basic feasible solutions are both one and the same. If it is degenerate, we cannot go ahead. We need to have number of allocations, and this number of allocations should be equal to m plus n minus 1. Then only it will be called as a basic feasible solution. It can be equal, or number of allocations can be more than n plus n minus 1. That's okay. But it should not be less than the m plus n minus 1. So how to convert this? We will see. So we cannot deal, how to deal with degenerate solutions is by making the allocations. Now basically what has happened here is number of allocations are 5, but m plus n minus 1 is 6. So this is the current situation is. In this situation, it's a degenerate solution. Now we need one more allocation so that we can have this m plus n minus 1 equal to allocations. So we have 5 allocations, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have to have one allocation in any of these unoccupied cells, either here, 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 or here. Now how do we do that? So we need to have independent unoccupied solutions, unoccupied cells. You need to find independent unoccupied cells to basically fill that or allocate that cell. How do we do that? First we need to write down what are the unallocated cells or unoccupied cells. So first, like a list of unoccupied cells. Let us make a list of that. This is unoccupied cell O1 D1, O1 D1 with a cell value 1. Then O1 D3 with cell value 3. O1 D4 with cell value 4. O2 D1 with cell value 4. Then O2 D2 with cell value 3. Then this one O3 D2 with cell value 2. Then last one is O3 D4 with cell value, or the cost of that cell is 1. So basically we have a 3 by 4 matrix. 3 by 4 is 20. We have 20 cells here, out of which 5 cells are occupied. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Out of 3 into 4 matrix, 3 into 4 are 12. So 12 cells are there in this. Out of 12, 5 are occupied. So remaining 7 should be unoccupied. Let us see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 are unoccupied, 5 are occupied. So total are 12 occupied cells. Out of these 7 unoccupied cells, we need to find independent unoccupied cell. Now what do you mean by independent unoccupied cell? Okay, we need to find independent unoccupied cell. Now what do you mean by independent unoccupied cell? An independent unoccupied cell is a cell, and is an unoccupied cell which when this unoccupied cell starts forming a loop, it cannot form a closed loop. That is called as an independent unoccupied cell. Let us start from one by one and understand what is an independent unoccupied cell. Now let us take this O1 D1, which is this cell. Now let us see whether it is an independent unoccupied cell. How do we find that? So if we are able to form a closed loop to this cell, then it is not called an independent unoccupied cell. If we are not able to form a closed loop, then it is called as independent unoccupied cell. Now how do we find that whether there is a closed loop existing or no? A closed loop will exist. We have to start with the unoccupied cell. We can take turn, 90-degree turn at the occupied cell. Let's say we are going like this. We can take a 90-degree turn like this. But once we take a turn here, there are no other occupied cells here, because of which we cannot take a right or left turn here. If we had a, let's say we had a occupied cell here, we could take a 90-degree turn here or here. If we could take here, again we have an occupied cell here, we could have taken a 90-degree turn here to this cell. Now this forms a closed loop. Then this is not called an independent cell. But in this case, we'll take a 90-degree turn here, but we cannot take any turn here. Okay? If we start like this, in this way, we can take a turn like this. Okay? We cannot take a turn here. Yes, we can take a turn here. Let's say we took a turn here. Now, if we take a turn here, there is no occupied cell. We can take a turn here. We can take either like this, but we are stuck here. We cannot come back to the main cell. If we are starting a loop from this way or this way, but if you are not able to come back to this original cell, then it is called as an independent unoccupied cell. So in this case, this O1 D1 starts with a loop, but it cannot end with O1 D1. So that's why it is called as an independent unoccupied cell. Let us tick this one. This is an independent unoccupied cell. Now let us see this one, O1 D3. O1 D3, if we start like this, we can take a turn like this, but we are stuck here. We cannot take a turn because there are no occupied cells here. We cannot take like this. We can take like this, we can take a turn like this, but there are no occupied cells here. We can take a turn, come here and take a turn. We can again take a turn here, but we are stuck here. We cannot go back to the original cell O1, D3. Then this is called as an independent unoccupied cell. Now let us try O1, D4. O1, D4, we can come here, take a turn, but we cannot go back. We can come here, we can take a turn, we can take a turn here, we can come here, but from here we cannot go back to 4. Then this also O1, D4 is a independent unoccupied cell. Now let us see O2, D1. Here we start from here. Let's say we start like this. Okay, this is the occupied cell. We can take a 90-degree turn. We'll go here. Again, we can take a 90-degree turn. Here we can go, and here we can again take a 90-degree turn and reach this O2, D1 cell. If we can go like this and we can come back like this, that means that there is a closed loop. If there is a closed loop, then it is not called a independent unoccupied cell. So this is not a independent unoccupied cell. So we have to leave this. Okay, let's see O2, D2. That is this one. We can go like this, take a turn. Okay, we can take a turn like this. We can take a turn, but we cannot go back because here there is no occupied cell. So this way it is not possible. Let's try this way. We can take a turn like this. Go here, we are stuck. If we go here, we are stuck. Okay. So if we go like this, here we take a turn, but we are stuck in both the ways. So if we start a loop from this cell, we cannot form a closed loop. That's why this cell is also an independent unoccupied cell. So that is O2, D2. So this is also an independent unoccupied cell. Let's try this one. Let's say if we go this way, if we take a turn, then we are stuck. We cannot come back. If we go this way, we can take a turn this way, but we cannot take a turn here. You can take a turn here, we are stuck. We can take a turn here. We can take a turn here, come here. Then if we can go here, but we cannot come back. So either of the ways we cannot come back to this cell. So that means that O3, D2 is a independent unoccupied cell. Okay. Then the last one, that is O3, D4. O3, D4, you take any route you want. You go like this, you take a 90-degree turn, you take a turn here again, you can come back. That means if you go like this, you will go like this, you can go like this, and you can come back. So here it forms a closed loop either ways. So that means that here this is not an independent unoccupied cell. So out of these 7 unoccupied cells, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 independent unoccupied cells. Now we have to allocate in any one of the independent unoccupied cells such that the cost of that cell, the value of the cell is the least. The value should be of the cell should be least. Out of these independent cells, which is the least valued cell? This is 1, 3, 4, 3 and 2. Of course, O1, D1 is the cell which has got the least value. So we can allocate this cell, right? Now, what number we should allocate? That's the question. According to the thumb rule, we should allocate epsilon sign. You know how to write epsilon? You should write the epsilon like this. You should allocate an epsilon symbol to this independent unoccupied cell where the value of the cell should be the least. So this is the cell which we allocate epsilon. and by doing so, we will be able to solve the optimality tests. Now let us see, have we met the conditions? Okay, the condition is number of allocations should be equal to m plus n minus 1 at least. So number of allocations, how many you got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. So 6 allocations. Now let us see m plus n minus 1. So, so 3 in, plus 4, that is 7. 7 minus 1 is 6. So m plus n minus 1 is also 6. So both are equal. That means that we have converted a degenerate solution to a basic feasible solution. We have successfully done this. Once you have this basic feasible solution, you can go ahead and solve the optimality test. So here is how we can convert degenerate solution to a basic feasible solution. And wherever there is epsilon, you should keep epsilon and start solving. I mean, you don't have to worry about this. It will not be a hurdle when you are solving the optimality test. You should, wherever it comes, you should take it as epsilon and start solving. So this is how we need to solve the basic feasible solution. Thank you.